Okay, so as we talked about in the last video, we would have to do some minor changes to the project so that we can move forward with the post creation and uploading to Firebase stuff. So first of all, I noticed that um, here when we are adding the first chord curve to the top left curve, this was actually min y, although I'm not quite sure why it was showing the same shape even though the coordinate points were a bit different. So I would suggest you that you add x here, because like along the x-axis you use the x values, along the y-axis you use the y values. Other than that, I remember that inside models, we have database user and we have a date formatter here, which do not exactly belong here. So inside extensions, if you do command N and then you select Swift file and write date plus ext, so we have created this file. We cut this thing out from here, we go inside here and paste it here. So this is one of the things, and if you go to user profile view, here we have this formatted date function. We can cross this out. We can go inside main view model. Main view model also has an extension, so what we can do is paste this here, and hopefully the app builds fine. So just checking it once, and I don't think so we have any other changes. Okay, so also I wasn't actually using Git control for the entire project, but I would suggest you could do that with a private repo if you're just using the app for your own personal work or sorts. If you have to show it to people as one of your portfolio apps, I would suggest you can have it as a public repo as well, but make sure that any um, important info, any key or sorts, if you're using such things, those are very well hidden or not directly inside your app bundle, because that can cause you issues. So yeah, so our app builds fine and it looks all good. So what we can do is that I can see that still the user profile view has some work to do, but meanwhile we can start with working with posts and we'll come back here and make some more changes. Right now we are trying to lay out the basic skeleton of the whole app. So everything is in place, then we can modify the UI as per our personal preferences. So coming back to the course, we have models. We'll do command N and this time we would write post. So basically we will create a struct which would be post. It would be obviously of the type codable, because for database use as we did here, we would have a similar sort of functions laid out for post as well. So that is why we need to have this conform to codable. And what are the few things that we need to add inside post? So every post will have a post um, id value, so we can fetch the post accordingly. Then every post should have owner id, so owner id should also be of the type string, and these things are not optional because obviously they are mandatory to be used. There should be an image url which could be of the hero image that shows on the topmost of the post, because if you think back, the idea of having a post was that it would have a carousel of things, and one of them was a hero image, a main caption, then best cafes, best places to visit, and things to consider, things like that. So this image url is for that. We can have a playlist url value as well. I'm not quite sure about this because we might need some sort of an integration with some streaming service like Apple Music or Spotify to actually show some good UI to the user. We can easily use the link functionality in Swift UI and just allow users to open custom tabs through our app. That is one thing, But we can think more on this particular feature, and let's have place name, which would also be of the type string. Then we would have budget, and budget also needs to be a string itself, because it's not just, it's not just the numbers, but it could have the currency symbol and then something like this. So that is why I'm keeping it as a string. For simplicity purpose, we don't need to write any other extensions in order to use this. There should be ratings, which would be a dictionary of string to string type, and then there should be best cafe image, and it should also be of the type string. Then we move forward and we have uh, best cafe caption. So basically alongside image you would have the caption ready. Then we would have best stay image, which is actually quite important because stays are one thing that people have a hard time finding in. So best stay caption also. So accompanying the image there should be some thoughts that people had about the whole thing, and there should be must carry things. Other than all these things, I don't really think I'm leaving something out, but if we do, we can actually just go back and implement the whole thing. Like we can add more values to this struct. So this is it for now, and then what we can do is that I was thinking, since we have this image URL functionality, how about just for like a dry run purpose, we don't really implement the image picking for all of the images. Rather we can have one image in place for now, just to check out that if posts are being made in a correct manner. So what we can do is we can go to our view model, and inside the view model we can fold this out, we can open this up, we can come here, and we can write a comment like post, and then we can have a publish property, and this publish property would have selected image, and it would be of the type UI image optional, and another publish property which would be to determine if the image picker is active or not. So is image picker presented. I noticed that in the newer versions of Swift UI we have a new image picker, as far as I know, but I feel like this is sufficient for now. I mean, we can later on do more things, but we can keep it this way for now. And what else do we need to do? So let me just think about how will this go on. We would have um, we would have some sort of a function to upload image, and there should be a function to add post to a user. So basically what happens is that we create a post from all the values that we take from the struct, then we upload images also, and then we link that post with the particular user, what I'm thinking. So what we can do is we can start with the most required function of the R, which would be uploading image to the let's just fold these things out. So first thing what we would write is that upload image to the Firebase storage. So not Firestore, but the storage one. So this thing here. We'll write a function to upload an image here, and Firestore would be used to link that post to that particular user as a sub collection. So you will understand how this is all working out. Right now we can fold these functions out, so we can see clearly, like there are some awkward spaces here, so just removing them. We have handle auth error, that's nice. and we have show toast message. I think show toast message can go inside here as well. So let me just add it here, and hopefully it does not throw any error. And since images is an array stored property, so how about we actually add it at very top? So looks fine to me this way. And what you can do now is write a command post functionality, and now we can start with writing the function, which we will call upload image. Let's use capital I, image to storage, and then we can take in an image with this function. The image that we will upload is just taking one image at a time. This would be an async throws, and then it would give us a URL. So the URL where the image is being uploaded, something like that. So we can have storage reference, and just thinking like how would you write this functionality? Okay, so you know one thing, that we are not using firestore for this, right? We are using storage for this. For all those firestore functionality, we were using the firestore class. So it becomes obvious that if you're not using firestore and you're using storage, which is another feature of Firebase, you would actually implement the storage what do you call it, storage class basically. So it should be, I think, do we need to, okay, it should be storage, Firebase storage. We have exported this thing out, so now we'll write storage dot storage instance, the default storage instance. Now we can use a reference on this, which says creates a storage reference initialized at root Firebase storage location, and then we can add a child path to this. So basically what happens is that storage is one big storage unit, but now you need to store certain things inside your collection inside storage, right? You don't just store everything right away, like there should be a collection inside storage where your things are stored. So for that purpose, what we can do is we can add a child path, and this child path you can name anything, but for me I'm just naming it images. And what would be the path for this specific image? So for that purpose, the main folder was images, but then you can add a new UUID class, I would say, which would just help you out with, differentiating different images. So basically we are creating this right away, and we can convert it to a UUID string, I guess. And if we do this, and we can add .jpg as well. So I'm just thinking if this should work out or not. So we have a UUID, and it says cannot return expression of type storage to return type URL. Obviously you cannot just return this thing because we have just written this one line, so it's assuming that we are returning this. No, we are not. So let's create storage reference constant and assign it to storage. So what are we doing in this specific line is that we are utilizing Firebase storage class, then we are taking a reference from it, and we are giving a path to which this specific image must be stored. So suppose I'm storing like 5 different images back to back. What happens is that each time it uses a new UUID, which is a unique identifier ID in the form of a string, and it adds it to the path. So what happens is that they all have a common subfolder of images, but then their path is different because of this UUID, and hence all the images are stored and no image is overridden by any other image, and we get all the images inside a subcollection images. Now, coming to the main part of this. So we cannot just store image as a UI image inside Firebase, right? Because UI image is of the type Swift. So in order for us to store the image, we would need to convert it to data. So let's do guard let image data. This would be image, referencing this above image only, and we can use this handy function JPEG data, and we can have the compression quality to 80%. So we are just mildly like reducing the quality so that the size of the whole image gets less, and we can throw out an NS error, and this NS error we can have a domain, and it can say invalid image data, and the code should be like -1. So this seems fine. Now what we can do is we can create a constant for metadata, because storing any image in a post request requires some metadata of its own. So it should have storage metadata, and this class is, I guess, provided by Firebase itself. So we create it like this, metadata. In case you're wondering how do I know what specifically thing to write here, it's only because I have seen their helping videos, which Firebase has on their YouTube channel also. So it becomes easier that way, and that's all. So image, and it should be JPEG. I think it's actually an important step in uploading the image. I remember once I was working with not Firebase but some database which was using AWS services, and I was making a post request to upload the image in terms of a multi-part form data, and metadata was missing from the images, and it was constantly throwing me error. So actually metadata is very important for uploading images online to your databases. So now we would come to uploading the data asynchronously. For the whole reason we added async throws here. So we will write try await, and I think we have this. Okay, so we have this one API from Swift itself which says with checked throwing continuation. So it says it invokes the past enclosure with a checked continuation for the current task. So it does not only just check it once, but it keeps on keeping a track of the upload status so that it can come back to us with the right status for the thing. So now what we can do is we can have three values here: continuation, not three values, actually just one continuation value, and this would be checked continuation, which would be, if you remember, we have a result type for our API calls. Similarly, we would have a result type of void and an error type of error, and it says in. So what we can do is we can use our storage reference now. We would use put data functionality, and now we will have image data, which we use in the guardlet, which we just verified that it is there. Then it asks for some metadata also, so we add the metadata. Now we open another closure. There what we do is that we check for metadata. We can just create a constant here and can create an error here. And now what we do is if let error, we're just checking if error is there or not. If let error is error, what we can do is now we can use the continuation, and we can resume with throwing error. Or else if there is no error, what we can do is that we can resume with the continuation, and we can have returning a void. So void can be written like this also. So this is there, we have this, we have this. How about we fold this out? It's constantly throwing us errors. So now we need to just get the URL which we need to return. So we will do return try await storage reference dot download URL. So what's the definition of this? It says asynchronously retrieves a long-lived download URL with a revocable token. This can be used to share the file with others, but can be revoked by the developer in the Firebase console. So this is the download URL specifically, and we needed this. So what this function in a nutshell is doing is that it takes an image as an argument. It is of the type UI image that we can pass in through our Swift. Suppose screen, we use the image picker, we select an image, it gives us a UI image, we pass it to this function. What this function does is that it first creates a storage reference path unique for that image. Then it try to retrieve the image data. In case it does not, it throws an error. In case it does, it's all well and good. We create a metadata out of the storage metadata instance. So very basic, a freshly created metadata for the image. Then we use this with check throwing continuation API from Swift. And basically what it's checking is that if there are no errors in while the storage reference is putting the data, uploading the image, and this is it. Now that we have done this much, our main functionality of uploading image to the storage is actually completed. So now what we need to do is that we need to write that function which links our, okay, so we can write as uploading image to storage, and now we can write another comment which will say linking post to the owner, which means basically the user who uploaded it. So here what we would write is that we'll create a function and post to user. I think we can create it as a private function. So add post to user. What will add post to user take? So basically it needs obviously some sort of an ID from the owner side so that it can link that post, and then we need the post itself, because what post will you link to a user if you don't have a post? So there we can write user ID, which would be of the type string, and then we can have a post type which would be of the type post, that is our newly created struct. So we can have async throws here because again it would be an asynchronous function. Now we can just create a DB like we did for Firestore functionalities. So it would be firestore.firestore. This is done. Then we create a post reference, and what we do is that we go db.collection, and here collection we would go to users, and inside users we will select the specific we'll select the specific document with the user ID. So now we are referencing to that specific user. If we go to Firestore database, what we have done till now is that we are going to the Firestore database, and it's taking a few seconds to load. Hopefully it loads fast. And basically what we did is that we used Firestore database instance. Then there are collections here. Like I said before as well, post would actually be a sub collection to the user type. So that is what we are doing. You see that this is here. So inside this user, if I do a start a collection thing, this collection would actually become a sub collection for the user, this particular user. So that is what's happening. We are referencing the users collection. Inside the users collection, we are fetching a particular document with the user ID which we are passing. Now we are inside here. So let's just come back here. Now that we are inside here with the user ID, we fetch the post collection, which does not really exist for now because there are no posts to fetch, obviously. Then we do is that we fetch the document with the post.post ID. So this functionality is really similar to what we had for database user as well. That database user can be fetched with its own ID which is inside of its struct, and also the Firebase assigns it some ID. So this ID and this ID is the same. So this is done. Now we have a post reference. So what we can do is that we have used a post structure here, and for database the Firestore, it does not understand our structure, right? Because it's a custom data type for us. Structures we use to create custom data types for our own use inside our Swift app. So in order for Firebase to understand this, we need to create it back to a dictionary. So that is what we are going to do here. we create post data. Post data would use try firestore dot um, firestore, and then we encode the then we can okay, so we don't use firestore, we use encoder, an encoder class. Then we encode the post that we are getting in this function as an argument. And now that we have encoded, what we can do is we can write try await post reference, and we can have set data, and it should be post data. So for the post reference, for this path we are setting the data, this post data. This post data is nothing but the post you are getting from the argument. How will we create this post now? So now we come back to our functionality which we need for creating a post itself. So we know how to upload an image, and now we can name this function, and this would be a public function because we will directly call it from our view supposedly, or we can actually wrap it up inside another function later on. So we'll call it upload image and create post. Or what you can do is actually just call it create post as well. I'm trying to be a bit more descriptive so that I can understand what all is going inside this function. So obviously we take in a user ID because we might need it in order to pass in with the for this function we are going to call add post to user actually inside of here. So this is async. We open this up. Now what we do is that first we check for guard let selected image. Selected image is nothing but the property we just defined above in our view model, and if it's a nil or sorts we can just return from here. And now we can move forward. Let's open a do block, and let's open a catch block as well. So a lot of things are going to go inside this do block. First thing would be uploading the image and getting the download URL. This thing we have already actually completed, so we are just going to use this upload image to storage function. So we say image URL equals try await upload image to storage, and it takes in an image. We can pass in the selected image which is also of the type UI image. This is done. Now we can move forward of creating the post object with the values and image URL basically. So now we can create a post from our post struct and post, boom. So let's make it a bit nice. So you can just enter these values out here, and we can have we can quickly do this, and this is there. So now we'll quickly add some random values for now. So for the post ID we can have a UUID dot UUID string because it's of the type string. For the owner ID it would be the user ID. For the image URL it would actually come out to be image URL dot absolute string, again because it's of the type string, not URL. For the playlist URL we can have anything https playlist.com. For the place name we can have something like, let's suppose, Paris, and for the budget we can have some like $5,000 or something, just random values for now. And let's give it some ratings. So this would be like we can have, for ratings we can have nightlife, NIGHT nightlife, and let's give it a rating like 4.5 or something. And then we can add more values here. So we can add safety, and I'm just giving out random values here, so let's just give 4 in all of them. So we're just checking out the functionality, what all things we need. We can have cleanliness or something, and This would also be like 4. um, Here we can have um, transport functionality. So conveyance we could write also, we can write transport also. So 4.3 here. Now that we have done this much, I don't think so we need any more values. Best cafe image can again be some https. Let's do random.com. And for best cafe caption, it could be best cafe here. For best stay, we can have https dash dash random again.com. Best stay caption would be best stay ever, something something. Must carry things would be, let's say, an umbrella. You need some jackets. You need some sunglasses. um, yeah, that's about it. So now that we have done this much, we have just created a dummy post for us to test out our post uploading functionality. Now we can do is that upload the post to Firestore. So we have used the storage mechanism for just uploading the images. Rest of the values of are basically strings and only, so we can directly upload them to Firestore, and that is what we are going to do here now. So we will do try await add post to user. This functionality we just wrote. For user ID we'll pass in the user ID, and for the post we will pass in the post we just created here. So this is there, and in the catch statement we can print out like, see, this is not working out. We can later on add error box as well for the users to know that their post upload was unsuccessful. So for now, let's write error in uploading image or making the post, because it's highly unlikely that this thing will fail. I think the only thing that can fail is that this functionality which we have written, because here we are just creating a structure. So again, this could also fail, but this is pretty much the same thing we have been doing with database user and everything. So I hardly doubt it would fail, but okay. Now what we do is that error in uploading image or making the post, and we can have error dot localize description here. So now that we have written all these functions, what we can do now is that we can continue with creating an image picker for our view, and then we would integrate that image picker inside our create post view. So we need to create another dummy view for now with just button or sorts, which would use the image picker, upload an image, and fire the whole functionality of creating and uploading a post. So this we would do in the next video. So thank you for watching this. Again, if you have any doubts, you could just post them in the comments and I would be happy to help you. I hope you're enjoying the course. So I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.